In this lecture, we are going to discuss degrees of freedom of an object. We are also going to see how to constrain these degrees of freedom and the various types of constraints that are used for doing this. Let us open a new file in Creo. We'll click on New and here we'll select Part, click on OK. Now we want to create a new sketch, so we'll select this sketch icon and we will select the plane. We'll select maybe this plane. Click on Sketch and we have to select this Orient Sketch. Now we are inside the Sketcher interface of a new file. Now what is constraining? Let us discuss that. Before constraining, we have to discuss what constraining does. It actually restricts the degrees of freedom of an object. So, what is degrees of freedom? That we have to see. Now there is a concept called degrees of freedom of an object. First let us create an object so that we can understand its degrees of freedom. As already in the last lecture we have seen how to create a line. We'll just select this icon and maybe I'll create this simple line. These are two set of lines. Now if I hold this endpoint and move, you can see the line is moving. Similarly, if you hold this endpoint, this line will also move. And if you hold here and move, you can see this is moving. So what it means is this line enjoys all the degrees of freedom that is available to it. Degree of freedom is the direction in which it can move. It can move or it can also rotate in 3D. Here, what we have to do is we have to restrict these degrees of freedom. And it can be done by using the concept called constraining. Constraining is restricting the degrees of freedom of an object. We can do this by the use of constraints. There are two types of constraints. One is the geometrical constraints and the other is dimensional constraints. Geometrical constraints are something like concentricity, parallelism, perpendicularity, equality, point on a curve, collinearity between two lines, and so on. And dimensional constraints are something like diameter, radius, distance between two lines, distance between two points, distance between a point and a line, and so on. So, we will use these two types of constraints and we will restrict the degrees of freedom by using a concept called constraining. Now, here you can see these are the geometrical constraints that are available with us. You can see these are the geometrical constraints. You can use this icon for converting a line into a vertical line. When I click on this vertical and maybe select this line, you can see it is now vertical. Suppose I want to make this line as horizontal. Then I can click on this icon and I'll select this line and you can see it is horizontal. Now let me zoom it by using the scroll of mouse. Let me click on the escape key to exit from the constraints command. And when I hold the line and move, you can see both the lines are perpendicular because this is vertical and this is horizontal. We will discuss more about this constraining and the degrees of freedom in the later part of the lectures. In the next lecture, we are going to move a step further and we are going to create our first sketch, which is completely constrained. So let's meet in the next lecture.